Just me, folks, here from, by the way, a hotel room in Appleton, Wisconsin. So if the internet's bad, if the sound is bad, please let me know and I don't know what I'll do. I guess I'll stop the podcast early. It's not going to be a long one. I have a show in 2 hours. Headlining Skyline Comedy Club, by the way. If you know anyone in Appleton, Wisconsin, tell them to come out. We need them. We desperately need them. It happened. I was kind of hoping it would happen before today or after today. Today was a tough day for me, for the Mariners to be eliminated from the playoffs, because I was traveling to Appleton, Wisconsin. As previously mentioned, I was on a plane when the Tigers and the Royals both won. I don't think they clinched, but they knocked the Mariners out of contention, because I think they would have had to lose out and the Mariners would have had to win out, and because they held all the tiebreakers. So the Mariners officially, I mean, it's been inevitable. It's felt like for a month, but they were officially eliminated from playoff contention. And I think that the fan base collectively at the beginning of the season, it was the angriest I've ever seen the Mariners fan base. The team didn't do a lot in the offseason, obviously, and the stuff that they did spend some money, but it was like kind of incremental gains, which I actually don't mind on its face, but I understand why people got frustrated by it. And now we did it. The culmination of all that, the culmination of all of the frustration, of all of the inaction, of all of the conservative spending, if you want to call it that, has led to this day where the Mariners are officially eliminated from playoff contention. We've been talking about playoff odds the whole season. At a point, they were up at or above 90%, according to Fangraphs. And as of this morning, they were at like 1.6% playoff odds. And like I said, it required either the Royals or the Tigers to lose out and the Mariners to win out and also I think the Twins had to not overtake, or had to lose maybe 2 or 3 or whatever. The Mariners had to be a full game ahead. They could not tie any of those teams and still make the playoffs. And so, that's the boat that we're in as fans and as Mariners fans, and the Mariners are in. And I said this on a recent episode. This kind of feels like a dream outcome for the ownership group, and I know that's cynical, and I know it's possible it's not even true, but it's. The Mariners are in contention until the last week of the season. I actually meant to look this up before because I remember this quote that I heard. Let's see, Mariners attendance 2024. Let's see if we can get to this quickly. Mariners attendance so far this year. Yeah, it's gonna get us pretty close to what I'm talking about. In fact. Dude, what's their, hold on a second. I remember when, so 3 home games to close out the season will almost certainly get the Mariners to this number that I'm talking about. I remember back when David Locke was a local radio host in Seattle. He talked about how the Mariners front office was perfectly content with a team that had a $90 million payroll, won 90 games, and got 2.5 million people through the turnstiles. They don't really care about winning a championship. This is David Locke's words, not mine. And different, by the way, nominally different ownership group at the time also. But the Mariners ownership group was okay with that. 90 wins, $90 million payroll, and 2.5 million fans through the turnstiles. And obviously, Major League Baseball payrolls have gone up. The Mariners payroll is above $90 million at this point, though. I mean, I'm sure they would love to spend $90 million instead of, what was their payroll this year? I can look this up pretty quickly. 2024. I remember it being higher than I thought based on people's anger towards it. Boy. Let's see. This is good. This is good podcasting. 2024 payroll, according to Roster Resource, was $145 million. And I think that was good for like, I don't know, 17th best in baseball or something like that. But the point is, they're like a mid tier payroll team with 90 wins, 90 wins and 2.5 million. And right now, I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share this attendance figure here. I don't know what the Mariners attendance is going to be like over the weekend, obviously, but they're at 2.439 million people so far this year. You can see them on line 14 of attendance here, and you have to imagine. I mean, it only takes if they hit their average for the rest of the this final series, they will hit 2.5 million people through the turnstiles, and that's again feels like a dream Mariners season for the ownership group and a nightmare, an absolute nightmare for the fans. And I'm curious how you guys feel about it. I will say, like, my expectations of this team going into the season was basically this, like a team that was going to be close to 81 and 81, close to 500. They had stretches where they were very good. They had stretches where they were very, very, very bad. I've pushed against the idea all year that they have a historically good pitching staff, by the way, and I do feel a little bit vindicated. I'm going to show you the. And I don't want to do a victory lap while the Mariners lose. I'm not trying to do that. I'm a Mariners fan. I want the Mariners to do well. I'm frustrated by the front office, and I have been for a long time. But this idea that the Mariners have just like a historically amazing pitching staff is it's simply not true. It's heavily aided by the struggles that hitters have in T-Mobile Park, and you can see that here. So George Kirby, by wins above replacement, was the best pitcher the Mariners had. Logan Gilbert was also very good. I think if we we could do splits, we could go through a bunch of stats that kind of further my point. But to get to the point that I'm getting at is this is like a good staff, a very good staff. We're repetitive at this point. This is deep into reruns on this concept. There's a lot of talk, and there will continue to be a lot of talk about the Mariners trading a pitcher in the offseason. I hope the rest of the league isn't as clued into how. I think this team has like they have like 2 number 2 starters and 3 number 3 starters. And by the way, that's good enough to be a playoff team. Almost, anyway. With those guys, the wins they accrued throughout the beginning of the season with those guys, and an average offense. By the way, I'm getting some crazy text messages right now. This is it's distracting to have a MacBook and have your iPhone text messages come up. I should probably put on Do Not Disturb. Let's do that so that we don't, because I'm only going to be here for like another 20 minutes max. Yeah, if they would have had an average offense, this team is like a playoff shoe-in, probably a division winner. I've seen some people arguing on social media about whether, like, if it's important to win the division versus being a wild card team or whatever. I mean, at this point, it's like beggars can't be choosers, and I know the Mariners technically got over their division championship or their playoff drought somewhat recently, 2 years ago. I'm not making the distinction. I make the playoffs, get in the tournament. That's the very minimum. God damn. So I'm going to pull up the Mariners payroll for next year because we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this. The whole playoffs. I also, by the way, I ran. Well, this is going to sound like too fat of a thing, but I bought a huge thing of water from Costco for my my comedy weekend, so that I'm not like drinking tap water or drinking Gatorade or buying a bunch of water. I just got a thing from Costco and some cold brew, and I like ran it into the room. And by ran, I mean I walked it to the elevator and walked it, and it went up. The elevator went up, and then I walked it to halfway down the hall to my room. But I'm between that and making sure this thing's working, and I'm fat. It's I'm winded, is what I'm saying. All right, let's look at this payroll. So this is, let's see. What we want is the Mariners in 2025. This isn't actually what we want. We're going to stop sharing this for a moment. We're going to find the actual thing that I'm looking for. Here we go. Let's find this bad boy. Come on. 2025 active roster payroll. Let's share that. Okay. So you can see, first off, Luis Castillo. I've heard like different things talked about with Luis Castillo as far as his no trade clause goes. I've heard that I've heard like reputable reporters talk about him being able to be traded next year, and then I've also, the way that I understand it is he has a no trade clause through the 2025 season. I have no idea what his desire to be traded is, but if we're going to talk on September 26th about what the Mariners have under their control, I don't think there's a lot of value in speculating whether Luis Castillo would or would not waive his no trade clause for the opportunity to compete, the opportunity to go to a city that's maybe a little more geographically friendly to his family or whatever. And I don't know what his situation is, if he has kids, if he's moved them out here, if he's moved his family out here, what. So your, next biggest piece of the payroll is Julio Rodriguez, who, when it's all said and done and the smoke clears and he has the good September, ends up having close to a 4-win season, and you don't feel horrible about that contract. I will say a huge chunk of his value comes from the fact that he plays a good center field. And at some point in that contract, there's a very strong chance that he will no longer be playing a good center field, and you'll have to move him to a corner. And that adjustment will be tough if his offense has not developed considerably past where it is right now. Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver, the Mitches, are going to make up $30 million in payroll next year. And these guys, by the way, untradeable. I don't know if you understand baseball trades well or not. These guys are untradeable. There's no way either of these guys, nobody's taking on any part of those salaries. Or maybe they'll take on part, but I'm talking like a small part, and the Mariners get nothing in return. These guys are very likely DFAs. Now, one thing I will say is there's going to be a lot of the fan base that's clamoring for this to happen early, and it's probably not going to happen early, would be my guess. Because there's going to be space on the 40-man roster. There's free agents and all that stuff, and the Mariners don't need to designate these guys for assignment right now necessarily. And so I would like be patient and know that just because maybe February rolls around and pitchers and catchers report, and these guys are still on the roster, like I think they're going to give both guys, who they're going to end up paying a combined $30 million next year anyway, no matter what, unless they are traded in a deal that I don't understand. They're gonna cost $30 million, and I think they're gonna be given every chance to make the team through at least preseason, or whatever they call it, spring training. And then Jorge Polanco. Let's pull up Jorge Polanco, because at a time Polanco was like he was really doing it at a time. Like his bat had really come around, and so he's got a $12 million option, which. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm starting to sound to myself like a Wisconsinite. This is not good. I did hear someone say, I heard the most Midwest sentence, by the way, that I've heard at the airport. There was a kid. So I'm on the Seattle to Wisconsin flight, obviously. And this mom, I don't know if she's from Wisconsin and it comes out, or if she talks like this all the time, but she goes, "You're going to get in the car." Oh man, I can't do it. I'm turning into like Lois Griffin. She's like, "You're going to take the best Midwest car." Oh, it's too Boston. I can't do it. I'll workshop it, folks. I was trying to off the top of my head squeeze a Wisconsin accent out, and it's not going to happen today. Okay, so Jorge Polanco plays. Let's check his. I'm going like June. I want to say it's like June. We'll say July and on. That's what I want to check for Jorge Polanco, and it's not to say. the beginning of last season means something, but he was still, I believe, a little bit injured, and I think we should at least take a look at this. My memory is that it was better, but not like some world beater. But is this guy worth $12 million next year? And so Jorge Polanco has July 1 on 227, 303, 403, triple slash line, 106 WRC plus. Do we get any like value stats? This is probably, I think we're probably, yeah. I mean, I think the reality is that dude's not worth $12 million. I'd be interested in bringing him back. I'd be interested in taking a flyer on him. I don't know that he's going to want to come back to Seattle. And I think the Mariners, again, like we've talked about, they're going to have a hard time attracting hitters here. So maybe that's actually the one argument for Jorge Polanco is if you don't spend the $12 million on Jorge Polanco, there's just no guarantee that somebody out there will take your $12 million that isn't just Mitch Garver, who's worse than Jorge Polanco. I know that people are down on all, and they view these guys as being just both worth zero. Jorge Polanco was actually a little bit better than a league average hitter the second half of the season. And, 11 home runs in 261 plate appearances, 8 doubles. Yeah, I mean that's a guy that you can put in your lineup. That's a guy you can roster, and you can have you could have him as your regular second baseman if he's healthy. J.P. Crawford, long-term contract. I think he's sticking around. Hopefully, J.P. going into 2025 is healthy and brings you something closer to what we saw at his peak. Victor Robles is going to be around, and I'm terrified that he's going to be expected to play 150 games next year. And, if he does, I would rather it be good news than bad news. I'd love him to continue to earn a spot in the starting lineup. I have a feeling he's going to be betrothed to spot by the ownership group, and that's terrifying to me. Dylan Moore, whatever, super sub. I got no beef with Dylan Moore. I will say, like, I've heard people say, oh, he's very handsome, and I'm not saying he's not handsome, but when I took a closer look, I was like, oh, I kind of thought, I guess I don't know everything that makes the dude handsome. I guess he's like fine. We're not talking about a model here, is he? And then Andres Munoz, he'll be around, and then there's some arbitration guys, Randy Arozarena, who I think you're probably gonna end up wanting to keep and trade or keep and play. Matt Brash feels like a guy they probably will let walk. JT Chagua, I don't know. Logan Gilbert obviously is going to make some money. George Kirby's obviously going to make some money. Cal Raleigh will make some money. Josh Rojas will be interesting, I will say. And then the rest of these guys, it's like it's all just going to depend on what the number is, whether or not the Mariners tender them, non-tender them, what. Like I think we're going to see. I have no optimism because I don't think that I've seen people talk about like it's Juan Soto or bust or stuff like that's the stupidest thing I've ever. The Mariners are not going to sign Juan Soto. Okay, the Alex Bregman I think is let's see, top MLB free agents 2025. We got MajorLeagueBaseball.com, which I never trust. Pravda, is that the Russian propaganda newspaper? That's so Juan Soto number 1, Corbin Burns number 2, Blake Snell number 3, Alex Bregman number 4. Bregman is 31, so you're getting into that period of time where I think the Mariners can actually maybe talk to someone who is Alex Bregman a Hall of Famer? I think he's like on the, probably on the border of being a Hall of Famer if he has a pretty good second half to his career. But he's also 31 years old. The early parts of his career, if I remember correctly, he got blocked by Carlos Correa a little bit. He was an LSU shortstop, and I think that, this is a guy that the Mariners at age 31 could go give him what is his last contract. You still probably got to overpay, though. That's the thing. It's like the getting people to take the money is going to be difficult. If you're out there watching, by the way, can you just at least confirm that I'm not cutting in and out? The internet isn't super fast here, but it's also not terrible. So any comment on that would be nice. I don't really, we'll see if it gets, if we need to talk any further about it, but just tell me that the internet isn't fucking up constantly, please. Yeah, and then you're like, who's next? Pete Alonso is out there again. Like Pete Alonso coming off of a down year. I don't see Pete. Not only do I not see Pete Alonso wanting to come here, I don't see the Mariners as a good fit. Like I think it's a perfect example of a guy who could come here and just see his career numbers plummet, like a Richie Sexton type plummet. Yeah, it's a tough offseason to be. The only guy that really makes any sense at all is Soto, and Soto's probably not available. So then you get down to trading those pitchers, and whoever you don't want them to trade. I mean, I think probably people's top two, I would guess, are like top one for most people is Logan Gilbert, and I mean top one to keep, that is. And I don't think these guys are that different. That's my hot take, because I don't think that Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, and George Kirby are that different from each other. Brian Wu, yeah, Brian Wu is different. I don't necessarily think in like I mean the waves are almost exclusively negative, right? Like he's probably the guy that you're a number 3, number 4 based on health as far as value goes, and then Bryce Miller I like, but these guys are all very similar pitchers. So to me, it almost is irrelevant. It's like, who can you get the biggest package for? Who can you get the most controllable hitter for? The best hitter, I think, is also important. I think that this team can. I think you just can't bet on pitching. And I think the Mariners learned their lesson from that. I mean, the old big three, Taijuan Walker, James Paxton, Danny Holtzen, with the fourth of the big three being Brandon Maurer. How did that work out? The Atlanta Braves teams, which, by the way, were incredible teams, but they had the big three and the big four with the Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, and then at different points like Kevin Millwood. Oh, and that guy that it was just like a National League guy that I can never. They had another. I can't think of his name, but like another uber prospect pitcher that Steve Avery, maybe? Was Steve Avery the guy? Anyway, yeah, just like betting on pitching, these guys are gonna get hurt. They end up getting hurt, and I'm not. I think it's okay to trade away pitching. Emerson Hancock is waiting in the wings, and then also the ballpark does a lot of the work. And I'm sure the league is aware of that. I'm sure you can't go trade these guys for whatever their ERA would suggest they are worth. But yeah, I mean, to me, if in the offseason you can't go sign a hitter of impact, of I don't know what I'm trying to say, of consequence, there we go, of consequence, then I think you gotta explore the one for one, and you'd like it to be a young, controllable hitter, but just don't expect it to be a guy. You're not going to go get a Fernando Tatis equivalent. Who is the guy? Who would be? I mean, I don't even have I'd be interested in speculating, like going through the lineups of lower level teams and who's like good and controllable on those teams. But you're probably looking. You're not going to, just don't expect to go out and find a finished product that's already there, that's already performing. There's going to be risk involved, because that's the nature of trades. If there was a team, I know the Orioles have a couple guys that have been suggested that are like pretty, but they're like high strikeout. A lot of the Orioles guys are high strikeout, and I don't know if the Mariners care about that. We're going to see. The whole thing is changing, folks. Also, do you think Edgar Martinez is a great hitting coach? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical, to be honest with you, of any of that stuff. Okay. I don't know. It's going to be a long offseason, so we don't need to belabor it too long. I just wanted to get on because the Mariners actually officially are eliminated, and I almost think that the worst thing that could have happened to this franchise is for the Mariners to squeak into the playoffs. I said this a long time ago, which is, if the Mariners make it into the playoffs by one game, making one game change the trajectory of the franchise, and that game is not a World Series victory. It is the game that sneaks you into a wild card game, would be very stupid. And I But it seems like a very Mariners thing to be like, well, we made the playoffs last year. We certainly shouldn't continue to evaluate the front office. They get rid of Scott Service. The results have been somewhat middling since then. It's not like the Mariners have taken off. It's very easy to know that because they were 500 when Scott Service got fired, and they're just barely above 500 right now. Anyway, okay. Please, if you know anyone in Appleton, Wisconsin, tell them to come out. I'm here with Chris Frangiola all weekend. I'm going to try to go to Lambeau Field, so follow me on Instagram, and I'm going to try to post some pictures from there, try to do a tour. Otherwise, thank you for listening to the podcast. We're going to try to do it at least 3 days a week, so hopefully an episode coming out on Saturday morning. Be on the lookout. Thank you. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Oh, and there's this. Now we got this. We will remove that and